Hey guys! And welcome to the final part of this series. If you've been here from the get-go, congrats! You reached the end. If you just found this video, you should probably start from the top and watch the other three first. I'll link the playlist above. But let's get on to the last part of my goal-making process, the daily grind. So, once you've got your yearly resolutions decided, your monthly deadlines set up, and your weekly schedule figured out, now it's time to set up your daily schedule to keep that motivation rolling. And the big player here is going to be phone apps. You're going to want something specifically with push notifications that can regularly remind you, hey, it's time to do the thing. For me, this is a combination of a journal app called Universum and my phone's alarm clock. I use Universum for the daily to-do list, and then my meal times, the one thing you didn't see on my Google Calendar, is in my alarm clock. Because that's loud and obnoxious and I can't ignore it. And I have a bad habit of forgetting to eat. But the purpose of the journal app is so that I could just get up and what I need to do for that day is right in the taskbar of my phone. I don't even have to think about it or figure it out, it's already there. I set it up to go off about 10 minutes before I'm supposed to start said task, so I have time to set up for what I'm doing so I can start on time. So, the Universum Journal. For the most part, Universum is your average journal. You can write entries and add emotions for the day and images and, what have you and whatnot. But the important function for me is that you can set recurring tasks. So, you can see here, this is the current Wednesday schedule, transferred over from the Google Calendar, and it'll give me a push notification at these times every day to be like, hey, here's what you're doing, get ready, get what you need done, set up what you need, get started. You don't have to look anything up or figure anything out. Your phone will literally tell you, hey, do this thing. And then if you don't know what specifically that you're working on, that's what the Trello board and your monthly goals are for. So, like you can see there, I have B in script writing, but if I'm working on multiple writing projects, I can go into Trello and be like, okay, I specifically need to work on the kitten route or greed story today. So you don't have to sit there going, oh, I need to work on, this, but I don't know what to really work on. Well, there you go. Obviously, sometimes you just aren't feeling what you're supposed to be working on, which is why I always add the extra list to the monthly finished cards. Give yourself a little room to work on what you want to work on, but at the same time, sometimes you just have to say, doesn't fucking matter, do it anyways. Don't forget your goals. So, you can see some of the recurring tasks. Obviously, they didn't all fit on screen at once, but you go in and you set that up ahead of time by the weekly schedule that you created on Google with the hours that you want to do them at. It helps to keep you focused on what you need to be doing, manage the projects that you want to be doing. It's a time management thing. And this is how I do it. I've always worked on a lot of projects at one time, and all of my friends are always like, yo, what the fuck? How the hell are you managing all that at once? And this is how. This video series was simultaneously about telling other people how I make my plan and stick to it. But also, every time someone asks me how I do the things, I could just link them to these videos and they could stop asking me. And they can stop sitting there staring at me with blank expressions whenever I try to explain it to them because they zoned out at part 1. So, this. Anyways, this is how I set up Universum. Obviously, it does a lot. It's a journal app. It does journal app things. I don't have to explain to you what a journal app does. moving on. Alright, so this one is a bit of a bonus. Universal's the big one, but this one Universum is good for telling you what to do. This one, and I think it's by the same developers because it's got a similar icon, but in addition to everything else to telling me what to do, I also use an app called Mastery. There's an old saying that to truly master a skill, you have to work on it for 10,000 hours. And so, this app, called Mastery, tracks how long you spent on that thing and levels you up accordingly. So for all of my creative work, I track it in this. Obviously, I took these screenshots a few days ago because I've had to re-record these videos a couple times now, but let's not talk about that. My point is, it gives you a very specific look into how long you spend on any one thing, which is great, for example, artists doing commissions. It's easier to price your commissions when you know exactly how long something took you to do. I've tried a lot of different apps when it comes to tracking what I've finished, and this is by far the best because it's simple and it's straightforward. Another one that I liked was Habitica, because it turned your daily to-dos into an RPG-like adventure, which is really cool. But the problem with Habitica was, as you can probably tell from its name, it was focused on building habits, rather than tracking work. Another similar one I kind of liked was Life RPG, kind of did the same thing. Can you tell I'm kind of a nerd? But Life RPG and Habitica both didn't track things in quite the way that I was looking for. They didn't give you a comprehensive look back at your accomplishments, specifically what you did in a day. It showed you progress on specific skills or habits, but not an overall view of your day. That said, I still highly recommend Habitica for habit building. It adds a lot of fun to just drinking water every day. With quests and pets and even armor for your little avatar. I still have the web version bookmarked, even if I stopped using the app. But anyways, Mastery. The free version of Mastery gives you up to 7 skills that you can log at once. And you can there's a paid version where you can get more, but obviously the free version is just fine. So you just put in what you worked on, how long you worked on it, and it keeps a log of your progress towards that mastery. You can organize these into sections, as you can see here, which is a little weird, but it's kind of neat. So I've got, digital art, music, and traditional art in the art section here. I have more than 2 hours in music. I've played the flute from 4th grade to 12th. I was section leader and first chair, and I went to all sorts of, fancy things for being good at music, like honor band and whatnot. And I very much intended to play in an orchestra or something along those lines in college, but college is expensive and I didn't go to college. So I stopped playing. But last year, I took art off of my goal list for reasons. And so I'm I need to replace it with something, and I found my flute, so I should try and replay that. And I got a grand total of 2 hours in. Moving on. Crafts. I have my coding, crochet, knitting, obviously. Writing has its own, and it was just, by itself. It's just writing. I used to have blogging in there, but I deleted it for knitting. So then here's kind of a list of my top skills. These aren't all of them, because, obviously they didn't all fit on the same screen. But you get the point. And this is a look at a little over 2 years of progress on these skills. Obviously, I have more time than 2 years in these, but this is how long I've had this app. But the fact that this app has lasted this long should say a lot. I go through apps like favorite songs. Anyways, so, and back to Universum. So, we have Mastery and Universum for productivity apps. Universum tells me what to do, and Mastery tells me what I've done. Well, in terms of skills. And I use all of this in tandem with one another to set up and track my goals for the years. This is the best format I've found for me after 4 or 5 years of finagling and testing dozens of apps and sites. And there's a high probability it'll change even more in the over time. Like I said, don't be afraid to rework your goals and your schedule. The important part is to just start. How you do it can change as many times as needed, but just get started. I wish there was more stuff like this out there for creative people specifically. Managing everything on their own and just playing everything by ear can get difficult to do, and it can be difficult to reach goals. There's a lot of really vague advice out there about how to do things, but nothing ever really goes into specifics. And so that's why I wanted to make these videos. And I hope it helps, especially if you manage a lot of projects, and especially if you've looked at a lot of the project managing websites and apps and gone, oh, well, you know, that's obviously not for me. It's just how you set it up. They absolutely will work. Some of them obviously are very specifically designed for business and team building and whatnot, so they won't work as well. But some of them, like Trello, this isn't Trello, but some of them, like Trello, are extremely versatile. And so while they mostly focus on the aspect stuff, they can be just as useful for tons of other things. Trello, and specifically, I like because they always put out articles on their blog to help with managing productivity, and a lot of them I found super useful and have incorporated them into my systems. For example, the Pomodoro technique. I had never heard of this until I read an article about it on Trello's blog, and I'm like, that sounds helpful. Obviously, it doesn't help when I'm writing an 11,000 AU for my main series from dusk till dawn, but it has helped me break up my coding into manageable troubles. But the coolest thing about Trello is that they have template boards that you can copy off and work off instead of just trying to come up with your own from scratch. And they've got stuff for business, they've got stuff for art, they've got stuff for home projects. I took one of the spring cleaning boards and reworked that for my own cleaning board. In addition to my monthly and yearly stuff, I have a cleaning board, I have a board for all the books that I've read and all the anime I've watched, and all the anime I'm literally in the middle of. I have a board for my book research, which the ability to add all kinds of links and images and descriptions has been helpful for. And obviously, again, everything I've mentioned in this series is free. There are premium and paid versions, but the free versions work just fine. Universum and Mastery are both in the Play Store. I don't know about the Apple Store. The only Apple product I've literally ever used my entire life is an iPod Touch, which I still use. But, so you'll have to, Apple users are going to have to find that, see if that's on there yourselves. But, so this has been Kitten's complex, very involved goal planning process. And I do this every year, and then I redo it and rework it at the start of every month. There are programs and websites. These are the programs and websites I use to track all of my projects and keep me on track for them. Ironically, as addicted to to-do lists as I am, I never actually stick to to-do list apps. I've had Splendu on my phone the longest of anything else, but I don't actually use it outside of grocery lists because it doesn't work for tracking projects. It's good for daily stuff where you don't have to keep track of it past that day, but But for project managing stuff, I would stick to journal apps and specifically project managing websites. Sometimes I don't even use Google Calendar. Some months I just go off Trello and Universum, because those are the two big players. But this has been the full process, from yearly to monthly to weekly, all the way down to a daily schedule, using Trello, Google Tasks, Calendar, and Universum, and sometimes Mastery. I genuinely hope this has been helpful. Even if you don't use all of this, or even most of this, I hope everyone who needs it finds at least one piece of helpful advice throughout the series, and I wish everyone luck and dedication on their goals. Keep at it. You got this. See you in the next video. Bye!